We're going to begin again. Julie Seydel with the Minnesota Association of Child Care Professionals and Cozy Kids Licensed Home Daycare is joining us via, I don't know, Skype? Okay, is joining us. So her part of the presentation we are going to listen to at this point. So welcome, Julie.
Hi, everybody. This is Julie Seydel, the Public Policy Director for MACCP, and I've also been a licensed family child care provider for 18 years. I started back in 2011 with public policy work at the Minnesota Legislature for LCCPAC, which is the Licensed Child Care Providers of Anoka County. And in 2015, after the state association shut down, myself and three other providers started up the Minnesota Association of Child Care Professionals, MACCP, because we saw that need for advocacy at the Capitol. We have been very instrumental in passing a positive legislation for family child care. Last year alone, we were able to push through 8 bills for the House and the Senate. They were ultimately signed by the governor, which did give some relief to family child care. Now, why does child care matter to employers? Without affordable quality child care, employees can't go to work. When they can't find quality child care, they have a hard time focusing on their work, and we want them to be able to focus on their job, which helps your business be more successful. Licensed family child care is better able to meet the needs of non-traditional hours, overnight care, and weekend care. With the current state, what is the current state of child care in Minnesota? A lot of people don't realize this crisis comes solely from licensed family child care. While child care centers have grown, they cannot grow fast enough to fill the spots. Centers are not sustainable in rural areas, and the cost can be twice as much as family child care. That is why licensed family child care is so important in greater Minnesota, and why the crisis is so much worse in the rural areas. We need child care to not only be accessible, but affordable. We need to expand licensed family child care programs and stop experienced providers from leaving the profession. I'm sure many of you have had issues with employees having to miss work because of a lack of child care and find it difficult to hire new employees due to the lack of affordable, accessible child care. I wish I could say things were going to get better soon, but they're not. We have a heavily regulated system. There are many lawmakers with good intentions wanting to pass more and more laws that are regulating child care, and the result has been overregulation to the point that it's hard for providers to keep up with the changes. In 2017, MACCP surveyed 2,514 licensed family child care providers for 1 week. When asked whether they were thinking of closing their businesses, 71% said yes. Of that 71%, 92% of those said it was overburdensome regulations and paperwork. Even seasoned providers are concerned with the reinterpretation of rule and statute, and every year it makes it more difficult to keep up with the expectations. I've been at the Capitol, and we do have lawmakers that express empathy. However, when it comes time to sponsor a bill or a vote, we find that the support is no longer there. What we are looking for is common sense regulation that keeps kids safe, but not overly burdensome on providers. There is intent to change this crisis, but instead it leads to millions of dollars for special interest groups, and very little of that money trickles down to family child care providers. I know a lot of businesses also feel that they are overregulated, so I'd like to give you a few examples so you understand where we are coming from. Providers have been given correction orders for not following safe infant sleep practices because a sock has fallen off of a baby while they're sleeping. A dog's water dish in the kitchen has been known to be a hazardous body of water. The provider's grass is too prickly. Not having a dentist listed on a form for a child who is only 6 months old. Hazardous materials accessible to children in care when liquid hand soap is on the bathroom countertop. If we leave our cooking utensils in a crock on the countertop next to our stove, we cannot use them as they may have dust on them. If a parent slams their own child's finger in the car door before dropping them off for the day, a provider has to fill out a serious injury report because it happened on their property. This report stays on the provider's record. To make it worse, if the parent mentions that it happened on daycare property when seeking medical attention, their health insurance company will refuse to pay the bill, and it will become the financial burden of the provider. We aren't making a ton of money running a child care business, and I don't believe any business could survive under these circumstances. There are currently only 3 insurance companies in the state of Minnesota that will even offer homeowners insurance to child care providers, even if the provider has a separate business liability policy. I know personally I am paying hundreds more per year than others pay, and it doesn't even cover any of my child care liability. So what can you do as an employer to help support your employees during this child care crisis? It's going to take some creative thinking. Can they work from home? Do you have different shifts that could be worked so one parent is at home and with the children while the other is at work? Can you offer backup child care or sick care? Sometimes just being understanding is going to be one of the best ways that you can support your employees. I know when I have to make the call that a child is sick and needs to be picked up, the parent stresses about the work they need to get done, how others will be impacted by their absence and have to pick up the slack. I'm sure most of you have probably had those days when your kids were young. That extra support in those first 5 years of parenting is the most important. These employees who feel supported become the best employees in the long run. They are more productive and more reliable. How can you all support family child care? Call your lawmakers. Tell them to support the common sense reform for licensed family child care and not special interest groups with millions of our tax dollars. This crisis really doesn't need millions of dollars. It just needs common sense reform. I had a couple of activities that I was going to do with you guys, and I apologize that I'm not there this evening. Things got a little bit mixed up with the legislative session starting next Tuesday and other things that were going on. So my speech here is a little bit short. I hope you take some things away from it, that we need to support the family child care business in this crisis. That will help support your employees, get them back to work, get them to work on a regular basis. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming and listening to this discussion to help us navigate through the child care crisis. We all have a stake in this crisis. We all want parents to have affordable quality options for child care so that they can work. This isn't a problem that's going to be solved overnight or anytime soon, but together we can all find ways to ease the burden on parents, employers, and providers to help them through this challenging time. Thank you. Yeah, I can hear that. Are there any questions?
Do you have questions for Julie? First, this is a new association for me. Is everybody aware of the Minnesota Association for Child Care Professionals? So maybe the question for Julie is, if they're interested in participating in that association, is it a membership? Is it a how do they become part of it? Yeah.
Yes, I did. And actually, employers can become involved too. We have 2 different levels of association membership. We have an associate membership, would just be a supporting role, and then a membership for providers. If you go to maccp.org, that is our website, and you can join from there. And we would appreciate all of the support. Yes.
Okay, hi Julie, it's Heidi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the other day on the phone, you had mentioned that all it takes is one email or letter from someone's constituent to make things happen regarding this issue. And so if you could just reiterate that conversation that we had and how strongly you feel about that.
And you're exactly right. One phone call from one constituent to a lawmaker will make a huge difference. Back in 2017, when we were trying to repeal the fingerprinting of our minor children, we had 50 providers that actually wrote letters, and the impact at the Capitol was amazing. They have never received that much response from family child care on an issue, and I know that is what helped push this through. If your lawmakers don't understand what's going on, and especially for providers that are out there, you need to educate your lawmakers. And it's not that they don't care, it's that they just don't understand. If you aren't a child care provider, if you're not in the business, you cannot understand the problems that we're having, and you just need to call them, educate them. They're just like everybody else. They go to the grocery store, they do their laundry, they put their pants on one leg at a time. They're actually very nice people. Call them, talk to them, educate them, let them know what's happening and what we need for support from them.
During your presentation, you talked about, I think you said 8 different bills that might be in front of the legislator. Is there something that you can share with us right now as what you see as the upcoming issues that need to be addressed, or that you're asking the legislators to address?
Some of the things that we're asking for this year is we have a bill that will force health insurance companies to pay for an injury that happens at our child care home when it's not due to neglect on our part. So, children fall on the playground. Sometimes they will break an arm, a scrape, need stitches. That happens anywhere. If it happens at a child care center, if it happens at a school, health insurance companies pay for it. If it happens at family child care, it becomes our financial burden. So we're asking for that. We're asking that homeowners insurance companies are not allowed to rate us and charge us more for homeowners insurance when we have liability insurance for our business. I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. I apologize. I don't have that paperwork in front of me. Last year, though, we did change our substitute hours. We were only allowed to have a substitute for 30 days, and that's been changed to 500 hours so that providers that need to go on maternity leave, maybe need to take care of an elderly parent, instead of having to close down their child care, which as employers you all know is going to be a burden on you, we can hire a sub, which is generally a family member, to come in and take care of our child care for up to 500 hours so that we're able to do those things. Hold on a second. That's my internet. Get off the phone. Get off the phone.
That might be it? Okay. We did the best we can to make the connection, okay? There were a couple of other questions that for our panel. Pam, I think you
Mark, can you hear me? Mark, a few of the providers were asking if you could explain that the amounts that child care providers are being paid are not reflective of to this area. It was reflective to more of a metro area. In your presentation, and then secondly, in one of our meetings, you brought up that we are barely making like $6 an hour. If you could talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to give up too much information on the case study, but that case study was 50 miles north of the metro. So yes, a more higher paid area, but still that's, no, I mean, they were, maybe it's not 50, maybe it's 30. I'll say. You can't tell us where that case study. Otsego. We're like 50 miles north. Otsego. It's not, yeah. And that's just using her stats and using their median income and using their, where they fit against their city alone, not regional.
We're seeing that number up there.
Yeah.
We're sitting back here going, I hope everybody in this room doesn't think we're making that much for budget and infant, because we're not. You know, that's a city-ish area.
That's each.
You know, a little area like this, we're lucky if we're making a third of that.
Yep, each area is different. Each area is different, and that's whenever you do kind of any case study like that, that's where it's always difficult. And
I didn't know what area you were talking about so we were trying to figure out where in the world you were
sure.
going with
We had stats. We have stats from Roseau. We had stats from Duluth. We have stats from St. Cloud area. So it's all different. So and if anybody would ask for this, Terry has given the data for Kanabec, so you have all that data here too. If you want to look at that's just the need, the supply demand. But if you want to get all your median income and what people are making, we can get that for you, no problem. When you talk about the $8.63 an hour, well, what is that? You know, if you take the $24,000 a year, you don't divide that by 40 hours. You divide that by the 55 hours you're open, plus the other 5 hours you're going to do your accounting, and then your other 3 hours you might go shopping, and then you do your cleanup, and all of a sudden you divide that into your wage. That's where that comes in. You know, the true working hours. You can't just say the minutes I'm open, because you all know you're not done after you close. So it's just a statistic that's been divided up in number of hours by pay. So that's where that came from.
Any other questions of this panel?
Another thing I was sharing with the group over there, at one of our EDA meetings, I was talking to Heidi, and she said, "Who is your support system?" I said, "Child care providers don't have support system." And she said, "Well, where do you turn to, whatever, you're a business?" I said, "Well, we can't go to DHS, that's not their, as you explained, that's not their, and licensing is licensing, so that's not it." And so Heidi said, "Well, your business, you can come to EDA. So if we have a concern or problem, we can contact them because we are business owners and we can ask for help. And if they can help us, they will."
That kind of fits into what I was just going to say. No, it's perfect. Exactly. No, you didn't. What Julie was talking about is you can go to your legislator. Well, you can also go locally. You know, you got your city council, you have your EDA, you've got your county boards. I mean, that's your direct conversation. And I will tell you, I have found great success when your city council and your county commissioners are on the same page saying, "Yes, we're here to help." And that's exactly what happened in Duluth. I'm working with Eric Forsman, who you saw in that video, and when they said we're going to give $500,000, I mean, that's an ecstatic piece. That's what I'm saying. The city, we support you. So besides going to your legislator, yes, that's important. EDA is important. County EDA is important. The city council, county commissioners. So those are all resources to say, you know, we have a story to tell. So just expands on that.
Mel, you had a question. Now, I'm not the voice for all of you. Remember, I do a good job, right? But Mel's question was for first child finance. Okay, you're going to have to help me out. For you as an independent owner, child care provider, what are things that they can come to you and contact you for?
I got it. That's a great point.
So realistically, what can you guys do for us providers?
Perfect. I, myself, nothing. My job is economic development, and my job is to help centers work with site selection, financing, etc. But all the other staff are to help you. They can work with helping with licensing, helping with the grants, helping with doing your business plan, doing a financial projection, you know, seeing are you making the money you should be making, are the rates equal to what everybody else is charging, all parts and pieces. So they're here to help you there.
To go a little further, so Mark can't do anything, right? You have a person now, and her contact information is listed in your brochure or program or whatever you call it. Your person to call at First Children's Finance is Terry Steckelberg. And her phone number and her email is in there. And she can help you with all the things Mark just talked about. And I can too. I can try. I mean, as Doyle said, I think, you know, this is not our area of expertise. So, but we know the people that can help you. Free technical assistance. We have a handout in your folder with the different financial resources. Most of those resources are for centers, or Becky's going to talk about this later, about opening up a center within a business, things like that. But there are resources for you for help with operations, help with learning how to market your business, you know, just business 101 type stuff. So Terry Stuckelberg, you can call her directly, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, then I can connect you with her, or we can get you connected to the right person. And childcare aware. Hey, I'm gonna go. So childcare aware, 3 people here today, and they're also part of our wonderful, part of our group called the Kanabec County Child Care Capacity Builders.
We have to decide who takes the mic, but yeah, I would just like to say that we have excellent coaches. 2 of them are sitting right here, and getting back to what Pam said about having a support system, they are really good about talking about different areas of your child care business, and they can help you through that. We also have some funding through DHS to do mental health consultations, and all of that is at no cost to child care providers. Yes, I'd love to. Ann Kubish and Shelley Coons.
So these folks can also help you, and will give you great service as well. And we can connect. We do connections to everybody who's here.
Mm-hmm.
They have grant programs, and there's a whole
Yeah.
lot of features here for you folks.
Our name used to be Child Care Resource and Referral, and we do still have a lot of resources. Stop at our table. We have a lot of things that we can share with you today.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they have a wonderful table over there that if you haven't gone over and checked it out, go check it out.
I think we're going to move on now to the next section. The first panel in session is really focused on the child care providers themselves. The second panel, we're trying to change the focus just slightly to employers. And so I'm going to ask Becky and Bev, can you come up to the panel?
No, we're talking back here.
So earlier, I just have to say this because I saw Becky smiling in the audience. When Julie was talking about how normal politicians are, Becky was smiling because Becky, well, you probably read her bio, but Becky is very, very, very normal and one of the best people I know. So, and Becky's going to talk right now about what she has. Actually, the statute, an 8-page statute in your folder, is something that Becky had a hand in writing. Or you didn't write every word, did you, Becky?
No, I'll tell the story.
She's going to tell the story.
I'll tell the story. It wasn't me. What? Oh. Yeah, okay. So am I holding this in the right place? Okay. So this is so exciting to be with you, but I have to tell you, I just said to Nancy over there, oh my God, this dialogue is so amazing, you know, all of you talking with each other and solving things together. You should just skip us, you know, because you're working together and you can make it work. So I'll try to be quick so you can start working together. So I really just wanted to talk about the legislation, Minnesota Statute 245A.14, and Katie already described this to you, and it is special conditions for non-residential programs, special family daycare homes, It allows for non-residential child care programs to serve 14 or fewer children. And you have a copy. I asked Heidi to give you a copy of this law. And so subdivision F and subdivision H, I think, are really important things for our business. I'm going to skip over a little bit of that so we can get on. So I like the next slide. Republicans and Democrats working together. Claire and Becky. Can I have a reaction? Yeah. It was in 1998. Woo, yeah, we had an early childhood committee in the Senate. Senator Pat Piper at the time was chair in 96 when I first left the House and came to the Senate. And oh my God, you guys, we had so much fun. You know how the senators all sit up at the front, and then there's the testifying table, and then there's all the people behind it. But Senator Piper and I went out and bought all kinds of toys. And in between the testifying table, were you there? Did you see that? Oh, in between the testifying table and the senators were all the kids playing with the toys. The kids who'd come with the parents, we said, bring your kids, and there they were playing with the toys. And the staff at the Senate that did the videos and the pictures of the hearings said they were the best hearings ever. Watching the kid, it was real, with the kids there. So anyway, in 1998, I was chair of early childhood, and Claire Roebling came to me, and she had an idea. And her idea, I'm going to have Bev read it to you in a minute. Her idea was that we make it, well, I don't want to say that because Bev's going to read it, but I'll finish this first. No, I'll just finish, because I just have to tell you that for this presentation, what it opened up for me was to call Claire, so here's a Democrat from Pine County and a Republican from Scott County, and Claire had this idea, and I loved it, and I was chair, so I signed on and heard it, and we just had this great conversation, and she sent a paragraph which Bev is going to read. Thank you. But let me introduce Bev. Okay, just quick. Yeah, no, this is really, because we're going to get into the importance of the board. We'll get into that later, and Bev is a go-getter board member for what we're going to describe later, so I just want you to know that she is out there making these things work. Okay.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, I knew some larger businesses were offering on-site childcare, and I wanted to help small businesses offer that benefit to their employees as well. However, the cost and regulations for childcare centers was prohibitive for smaller employers whose enrollment would be lower. Using the home family childcare model just made sense. I'm so glad we were able to work together to pass the bill. From Senator Claire Roebling.
Isn't that exciting? Yeah. So, I'll jump up to this. I just have to tell this story, and the title of this one is My Dream and My Husband's Approach. So in 2002, our company Nemadji, there's flyers in the back that tells you about Nemadji and flyers about the nonprofit at the business. So anyway, he didn't really want to do this. He was thinking about it, but he'd been working in smaller hospitals, and some of the people had recommended to the Los Angeles 7 public hospitals in Los Angeles County that what we do for these smaller hospitals, they would like it done there. Well, that meant we would really have to grow. And my husband didn't really want to grow. He was a brilliant man who built this system, but he was very private, but he decided to go ahead and do it, and so then we bought the empty elementary school in Bruno because we just hate the idea of our small towns, these buildings that used to be the vital center of our town becoming this empty, depressing thing in the middle of town, you know? And so we bought the building, and then we're going to get larger. So I said to my husband that I wanted a daycare. I wanted a daycare in the building. And so for thinking of it for our business, I remembered when I was in the legislature that I'd read a survey. Well, I was still in the legislature then, but when I was chair of early childhood back then, that I'd heard a survey that parents really prefer their child care providers be close to their home rather than further away from their home. And I thought, well, what if it's right in their business? What if it's right? What, would they like that? You know, how would that work? And so I really wanted to try it. I didn't know if it would work, but I said to him that I really, really wanted to try it. Now I knew that it was really tough to get. Where's Katie? I knew it was really tough to get child cares licensed. I'd heard that from my constituents, and so I hired a contractor separate from the building remodeler. I hired a contractor to build the child care inside this building, so that we would meet all the specs. And then I called a child care licensure from Duluth to come down and walk through my ideas with me and my husband. So he did, and oh my God, it was like we'd walk down a few steps, and he'd say, if you don't do this, you'll get sued. If you'll do this, you'll get sued. If you don't do this, you'll get sued. If you do this, you'll get sued. So that night, I was sound asleep, and about 2 a.m., there was this rubbing of my shoulder, and it was my husband, and he said, Becky, we can't afford to build a child care on site because we've already lost 2 businesses. The one we lost, Deb said I had to tell why we lost a business. So we had Seydel Corporation. It was doing really, 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 really great, and so we thought we'd get bigger. It was supposed to be the next Control Data, you know, and we were doing a venture capital. And who remembers the big crash in October of '87? We all remember it, right? Well, there were lots of little crashes on the way to that. And September of '86, the day we entered the market for our venture capital move, technology stocks crashed and we lost everything. So just some examples of life's regular struggles. But he said, you know, we can't pull ourselves up another time. You know, I mean, so we can't do a daycare. I jumped out of bed and grabbed a quilt and ran into the living room and threw myself on the couch and said, I'm not sleeping with a man who won't build a child care. So he's such a good sport, and he got out of bed and he walked into the living room and sat down on the floor by the couch, and we just started brainstorming, and he came up with this idea. He said, you know what, maybe if we start a nonprofit, it'll be a little bit separate from the business, and we won't get sued if something happens. So this part of look at him, isn't he just adorable? He died 12 years ago, but he's still really, really with us. So what happened then is that we ended up with a nonprofit board, and Bev, take it away. Here's our board strength.
Tender Pines, let me flip. There we go. Tender Pines Family Daycare through the years. Tender Pines Child Care is a nonprofit and a Minnesota family child care facility licensed to provide daycare for up to 14 children. We provide the infant daycare from 6 weeks up through children age 10 from the northern Pine County communities. Our child care program is one of a few that offer an indoor gymnasium and fenced outdoor play area to provide children opportunities for active play. Located directly inside the Nemadji Research Center, we are the perfect place for the employees to bring their children. And Becky wanted to, it's hard to see the picture,
Oh,
but they were
you want me to do this?
having a little drum march there.
Yeah.
And then the history continued.
Which one you push?
There you go. The history continued. Tender Pines Child Care began in 2002 as Nemadji Child Care, as a nonprofit doing business as Nemadji Child Care. The driving factor for starting a child care facility at the Nemadji building was for employees of Nemadji to have quality, affordable child care on site, eliminating the stress, worry, and financial hardships regarding child care can be an incentive for individuals to join our workforce. The on-site care at Nemadji, now operating as Tender Pines Daycare, strives to provide loving care that is education-focused. Tender Pines Daycare Now, parent input is very important and accepted in providing services for their children. This in turn gives peace of mind for parents. Tender Pine is also located in a locked facility, therefore no one can enter without being approved and let in by a Nemadji front desk staff. This ensures we have safe visitors and is comforting to the parents. Previously, Tender Pines was opened as employees only care, but now is open to the public.
So our next slide is businesses and nonprofits working together, Nemadji and CCA. It has become community-connected allies as it evolved, the nonprofit. So I just want you to know that the law allows a business like mine to support, to donate. So we can keep costs affordable for our community. Was that 20% that you talked about? I looked at it and I thought, oh, that's, you know, I'm sure we support at least 20% because keeping cost affordable for our community is very important, that we donate the space and the internet and the utilities, et cetera. As a business, we donate that to the child care. So that helps a little bit, I believe. Fundraising, of course, is really important for CCA. So new toys, playground equipment, and supplies are funded in part by fundraising. And then the cool thing is that Nemadji employees donate their time and funds to raise money for the nonprofit programs. And they do a yearly hoedown fundraiser event. They attend that, and then I'll talk about the Christmas basket silent auction competition among the employees in a minute. The next picture, this is the nursing room. I took a shot of it for you. You can see the sink and the changing table. And when we put this room in place, the Nemadji employees also use that when it's empty. They use it for meetings. But when we built the room for the nursing, there was a competition around the company. Everybody made up a name, and then everybody voted on it. And so the name that it's called now the Parlor. But right now there's a mom and a baby in it, and the baby is Anna. And I don't know if I dare contact my 61 employees and say I want to change it to Anna's room, because every time I see Anna and her mom walk in there to nurse, I think it's Anna's room, not the parlor. Anyway, it's really cool. So the next page are the Christmas gift baskets. You can see maybe that all the employees, they form 4 groups, and then they all put together the most innovative Christmas basket they can think of. You can see one's called The Great Outdoors, one's called Crime and Mystery, one's called Northeast Music, and we had a really bad year last year because we had a breach. I'm not supposed to mention it, but never mind that. So that box was called the 2019 Recovery Box. And then everybody buys tickets for it, you know, and then there's a drawing at the end. And even, you know, people all around the community come in and buy tickets, because all they do is just buy some tickets and they might get one of those boxes. And so anyway, that's just one of the things that the employees do. And it's Bev again, because here's the board of directors.
This is our board of directors for the Community Connection Alleys. Our board of directors, of course, helps expand exposure to our community and promotes growth. We have Al, who is not pictured, Rainey, me, and Amy, Lou, and Larry, and here we are meeting with Mary, our daycare, and Joan, our cook.
So the next one is, I just want to expand what we were able to do. This one is talking about congregate dining and Meals on Wheels. And so this was my husband's vision with a nonprofit established for the daycare. My husband began to imagine how the use of the kitchen, you know, in a former school building could be enhanced. And he then approached the board, and the board began to develop in partnership with Catholic Charities, Congregate Dining, and Meals on Wheels. And this also is something I'm excited about because this relationship develops then between the kids in the daycare and the senior diners. I'm a senior too, so I eat with them. And so the senior diners, so there's some intergenerational stuff going on. The next picture, I just wanted you to see the picture better because it's just so much fun having the generations together, you know, and it builds other relationships. Anyway, I won't go into that. So Bev, I'm going to let you get back into the daycare. I just, as she gets back into the daycare, I just want to say that the first time after the daycare was established and one of my employees was walking out with his son, holding his son's hand, and in the other hand the son was showing him the craft that he had made in the daycare, I absolutely choked up. It's so exciting.
I think we just have some pictures here. We have Halloween, thank you. And Thanksgiving crafts made by the kids. And they were painting and the usual daycare stuff, painting and making their puzzles. Antarctica week. Yeah, isn't that cute? Halloween, let's paint some pumpkins. Valentine's Day. And pajama week.
Let me just tell them about the kids there. Their grandparents and everything. Well, that picture of it just ties, you know, everybody together because their grandparents, the three boys, their grandparents, their grandpa's the fire marshal in the town, and they just live right across from the school, and their aunt doesn't live so close, but she works there. You know, it's like family.
We got pajama week and learning about the animals in North America, including our snakes. Little Halloween and birthday parties, Christmas in there. Santa always comes to visit, of course. There we go.
And by the way, we got all the parents' permission for the pictures. I just want you to know. So some of the kids in the daycare didn't have their parents' permission, so they weren't in the pictures. But all the kids that were in the pictures had their parents' permission. So, because they want to support the daycare. So this is just the closing that, yes, an on-site daycare in a business, I believe, enriches a community because why do we work? We work to use our talents and our skills. We work to support our families. And as we do so, we build community. My employees always smile when they hear the sounds of children coming from our daycare, and that in itself builds community. And I just have to tell you that during an economic challenge a number of years ago, even employees without children voted to save the daycare. Some things that we couldn't save, we had paid sabbaticals at the time, we were paying for college at the time, and we had this setback and we couldn't continue everything. But all the employees, even the ones without children in the daycare voted to save the daycare because it strengthened the workplace community. So this has brought us all together. And that's it. Thank you.
I don't know how I follow that. You've heard me talk a couple times already, but just to seeing the kids, I mean, that's the real deal. I mean, that's why you do it. That's why we're involved. It's not, we talk about having people be able to go to work or make it, but just to see those pictures, I mean, that's the real stuff. And it's anyway. Katie talked about a little bit of what I'm going to talk about here, so I'm going to pass through some of it. You've talked a little bit about innovation here, so I'm going to pass through that. I want to really go to one piece of which we have not talked about, and I'll explain it in a little bit more detail. You've heard about family child care. You've heard about center child care. You've also heard the terminology of having a family child care in a commercial setting. I have been fortunate enough to be, when I first got into economic development, in a project called the POD model that was existed in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. So I will go a little deeper into that, and I will talk about what we're doing today with that and what's happening, and we have actually another example. So I'll just pass through a lot of these quickly because you've heard about them before. Solutions, of course, everybody's go-to solution is put up a new child care center. As you heard earlier, quite expensive, a lot of details involved. Working with nursing homes, as you hear here, you know, a nonprofit or the intergenerational, that's an option also, and that is definitely out there. Just like I said, I'm going to pass through some of these because you've heard of them before. Employer-sponsored childcare. Once again, having the childcare on site. Some of that, it may not be direct cash given, but there definitely is donated space, donated activities, things like that that really mitigate the expense for the provider. So that is definitely a model. Nonprofit, as you also heard about earlier, that is a different method, I will tell you, that I'm not really well aware of because I've been working more with the child care centers that are for-profit, but definitely a model that's out there. Faith-based, also within churches, as a licensor knows that there is definitely a church model that is unique to the models versus a child care center and or a family child care. And this is where I wanted to go to is the pod model. And that's just been a name that has been brought up because it comes up like little pods. And I will explain to you if you're not aware, here is the center that it does exist. It is operated by Mojave Ottawa out of Detroit Lakes. Mojave is the first two letters of each of the counties of which they do business. Monoman, Hubbard, Becker, Ottertail, and Wadena, thank you. Just appreciate it. Essentially, right now, this is the very important part about this is it must be operated by a community action per legislation. They must be the one that operates it, that runs it, that controls it, to make sure that these providers are doing what's right by this pod model. Currently, the Office of Inspector General is looking at changing these rules. Our hope is expanding them to let other entities be the oversight for the pod model. And that's because not every community action group is set up and ready and able to be the operator of such a model. So here's what it is. The Mojave Ottawa has 4 providers within their community center. They're old classrooms, and all 4 are set up as child care providing entities, meaning they're their own business. It is a family child care provider is in there, and they cannot commingle children, they cannot commingle care, they cannot commingle toys. I mean, they are their own operator. They just happen to be all connected, which looks like 4 little pods. That's where the name came from. They also use the indoor play area for the community center, so they don't have to have a large motor room external that's right there on site. With Mojave Ottawa, they essentially do a lot of the operational, they do a lot of the accounting, they do a lot of the payments, so they have a lot of in-kind work. The charge for the space per month, $125. So very affordable to have a place that's maintained, a place that's lit, that has utilities, has a space for play for $125 a month. So this is an option. But as you see, there's some rules behind that option, and it's not, the ease of entry is not there because you have to have, right at this point in time, a community action group must be the oversight. So here's some of the things. You must have available space. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you just have one space. Having 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces makes more sense because there's economies of scale with that. And once again, like I said, currently you need to have a community action agency to coordinate the program. Generally, there's lower startup costs because there's already a space there. There's already usually, like it's an available space of a school or a senior center and or a community center. Startup material costs about $4,000 to $8,000, and I will tell you that I've worked with some entities that have actually had that gifted to them by Mahabiyatwa. So that's another great asset. That's not all of them, but some they've had written for grants and got their startup costs granted to them. Low rent, like I stated, that their rent is $125 a month. And then obviously there's a public-private partnership because it's in the community center. That is public space, and these are 4 independent entrepreneurs that have their own business, so there's the partnership there. There's definitely some advantages. I'll tell you the one thing that I've heard is that it's actually you're going to work and you go home. You know, your home is not being used as your home space, your family space, your child space, and your workspace. There's actually a detachment there. You actually have co-workers per se. I mean, you have people to go talk to. You know, I think Pam said earlier, who do you confide in? Well, you've got a neighbor right there. It's like, well, what would you do? Or what are you doing with this business? So just have people to work with. You're not having the damage to your home. I mean, that's the one thing I think about when I have people over is, boy, I got 10 people at my house and it seems like something always gets broken, no matter what. But you know, and if you're having 10 people at your house every single day, things are going to get broken or just used. So that way you're not having damage to your home. And once again, you're not intruding on your family's life. It is a definite and separate piece. And there's more to that, but I'll move on from there, because I want to talk about an actual project. This project is being executed right now, and it is being executed by the EDA person in this community. And I will tell you this woman is breaking her back to make this happen. She has driven down to Minneapolis to get the startup equipment in a trailer, saying, you know, how can I save money? Let's go pick up some used stuff that's quality. Just to try to say, how can we get this to open? And you can see they're just making some adjustments for 2 rooms. They're trying to turn this into 2 potential classrooms to expand their slot availability, which is only 20 slots at best. So they're really working hard at adding this, and this space is within a senior center that they had some extra space. So just the drawings there. The total cost for these two spaces, or excuse me, this large space to be turned into 2 spaces, essentially is you had to do a design. They had to change the heating and air conditioning. Of course, there's the equipment and furnishings for the providers. Like I said, once again, this EDA person found the best bargain she could get and drove down and got the equipment in a trailer, drove it back just to keep it affordable. And then, of course, there's fees for inspection. At this time, the total costs were $2,200. I talked with the EDA person last week, and she said it's actually gone up to $24,000. So a little bit. There's some other costs that have come into this. Very affordable for this one case compared to the numbers I've been saying earlier for a center. You know, 2.2 million. This appears to be affordable. Once again, you need a lot of players. You need a lot of help. So where did the $22,000 come from? Their Community Development Association brought in $5,000. Northland Foundation brought in $5,000. Deed brought in $5,000. The City of Little Fork brought in $5,000. The Resource Council brought in 200, so that makes them at 20,200. So there's 1,800 left over. And where's that coming from? Exactly the same kind of things that Becky was talking about. They're going to do a little raffle and figure out, make prizes and have people offering just to, whatever you can do to get to that 22,000 number. Because there's just no money laying around to make this happen. You need people to help. And you can see we've already got, 5 community entities bringing money forward. And from what I do not know the result of the fundraiser as of yet, but I can almost guarantee you the $1,800 is going to happen. I don't see there's going to be any problem with making that happen. Do you have a question?
How many children are allowed in each pod?
The pod is treated just like a family child care. So it's 10, at best. I mean, it's the same exact licensing. They come in as if you're for the license as a family child care. Now the rules are going to be a little bit more different with the facility, but because of you're in a non-family environment, but that's the same. So at best, unless you have 2 people working in there, you could have 28 if you get 2 people working in there. It doesn't tend to cash flow that well, so it's 20. Yes, you're welcome. And then, of course, you've all heard about the school district where, the school has their own child cares. And then there's just a case study that was in Montevideo. I'm not going to go through all these details, but essentially what I wanted to finish with was this, is there's some questions out there about who's out there to help and how can we get things done. Right here shows you local is the first place to start. I mean, it's just like going to a local business and then you go to them and say, would you want to donate to the football team? They're vested. They're part of it. They feel it. They may have a kid on the football team. And when you work with your local entities like this, you can see that they all brought in small pieces of money, $5,000 here, $5,000 there. But at the end of the day, does the project happen? And that's really what the goal is here, is from 10 kids to 20 kids to 100 kids, we need all of it, all the above. And that's where we're really trying to be creative, and this is a creative idea here within the business. The pod is creative, and we're trying to be more creative by even changing legislation so more entities can be the oversight for that. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Can I just add? And just to add, totally encourage you to contact your legislator. I have to tell you that the best work I did was the work that my constituents brought to me. I was just the go-between. We belong to you, your legislators belong to you, You're the people who they are serving, and it's so much fun to find these ideas, and the best ideas come from the people who are doing the work, not from the legislators. It comes from the people who are doing the work. How can they do anything if they don't know what it is you're doing, what your barriers are, where your stresses are? It makes a difference. The column, because you're really the ones they're serving.
So speaking of the legislature, there's a current, I asked about this, I call it the co-oping. Is it the same as the pod? Can you expand on just, okay. But there is a concept at the legislature right now, right, where, okay.
On that note, we were working with the Office of Inspector General, and they were to have the rules out by September 1, because we want to find out how can we help, and if the rules are expanded, then let's use those expanded rules per, what is today? Let's say per a couple days ago, there still isn't an answer yet. So that's on that note of that expanded co-op / pod model. We're hoping to see some expanded rules so we can better utilize this opportunity.
Can you talk about who would benefit from that?
Well, it just opens the playing field. Let's just make up that the community action office that you have here, I don't know you, so I'm just going to make it up, that they don't have the capacity to say, we don't have enough staff to oversight. We couldn't do it. We're maxed out, we're short of staff. So then they say, well, sorry, Kanabec County, we can't help you. Versus saying, let's say a United Way could do it, and the school district could do it, and or a community action group could do it. Well, then you've got options that say we could help. And then if the school district had space, and say, we'll offer you the space and be the oversight, you can have our space for free. See, there's just that different options versus having to have one entity be the oversighting agency. And that was brought by Mojave Outlaw. They brought that forward. They created that opportunity, so that's why it is the way it is. So if you had more entities that could do the oversight, it creates more opportunity.
The piece that I think maybe is unspoken here is if there is a family provider currently who is challenged because of their space, meaning their home isn't conducive or something like that, and this opportunity was there, they could have their operation, their family-based operation in a co-op situation. So the existing providers that we have, if space was a limitation, this could be a possible solution. Okay. I think that's the most important piece that's being missed in this, is that the current providers or a provider who's thinking about getting into the business, right, doesn't have to go through the capital needs of remodeling their home, okay, but this is what they want to do, okay, and this was the opportunity. It could be for that, that's correct, lack of a better word, an incubator. Yeah. For a child care.
If I could expand that just a tiny bit. Yep. When I first started, as I said earlier in my presentation, I worked with Lund Boats and with Kenny's Candies. I was getting 3 calls a week from providers saying, when's this going to happen? I want in. That was a surprise. I will tell you, we thought we were going to get calls from parents, when are you going to open? We were getting more from providers saying, you know what? I would like to have this outside my home. I would like to have this opportunity. I want to keep providing care, but there's many different answers to that. But I will let you know what's happened since then. We were going to put it in an old school, but what has happened in New York Mills, they ended up buying 2 homes, turning them into the pod opportunity, and now they are using homes and they have providers and it's working. And really, who was the impetus for that? The business. Lund Boat said, we need your help. The city and county said, we're here. So I just see that that opportunity is definitely there for those different providers that need a different opportunity.
Do we have questions? There's got to be some creative questions here. Okay. Mm-hmm.
There's no questions?
There's no questions? There's got to be questions.
Okay. Okay, so would you 3 be open if, anyone's too shy to ask right now for people to contact you directly? Okay. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Here we go.
So you spoke already about how we can create more slots for childcare, but something that we haven't talked about yet is how employers can be really encourage that culture that helps employees besides just having on-site daycare. What are some other ways that employees can create that family-centered culture?
Well, I think was it Julie that went through the list of what employers could do? Who was that? Was that you, Katie? That was Katie. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty comprehensive list of what we do is work hours for parents. I mean, we listen to the parents. We've got a really great human resources person, and respond to the parent and their supervisor, and how their hours can be flexible for their childcare. So yeah, I mean, it's got to come, I think, from leadership in the company, and pass on down to the human resources director, and you know, through the CEO and the management team, and then the managers, that's our policy.
Along with that, some of the creative things that came out of the companies that I was working with was that the pod would follow the exact hours of their working schedule. Just to give you an example, Lund Boat was a 4-day, 10-hour-a-day. So that's what the child care provided, that schedule. So the child care provider got Fridays off, and so did their staff. So just that was that flexibility. I've heard of also having child care savings accounts that are like a health savings accounts that are options. The other part that I'll go a little different than this is when you have a quality child care option, it's something that a business can recruit toward. By the way, we have quality child care in our community. We want you here. We have quality housing, quality care, and a quality job. So it's kind of different than your question, but it's one thing that we really try to focus on. Everything we do is on quality, not just a slot, but a quality slot with a highly educated professional provider. So that's something that we feel proud that we can say, okay, businesses, you can recruit to this. So it's also part of the mission.
One thing I wanted to add is that when Doyle and Heidi brought this idea up, I read an article probably like 3-4 weeks later, and it was talking about you as providers seeing opportunities for yourself too. This article was about a provider who knew of an employer that had downsized their business, and so they had space. So she got together with another provider, and they were able to use that employer's space at no cost to them and be able to set up a co-op or pod, however you want to phrase it, within that employer's business. So as you as providers might have knowledge of a building in one of the communities that may have space, you may want to join forces and do something like that as well. This whole thing is for people to recognize that our providers, we don't have enough in our community, first of all, and secondly, that we value you because you are raising our futures, people that are going to be leading our communities. And so that's what this is all about. Hopefully you'll be able to get to know each other and continue to network and bounce off each other as well. That's all I have to say.
Everyone wants the mic. It's crazy.
I have a question kind of from an employer's point of view. I believe that it's a very scary subject. And the term I've heard is, if we think about doing or providing childcare, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. Okay. Are those resources that are available to the providers also available to employers if they want to venture into this? I'm looking at that table in the back. So if employers have some ideas about going into it, I just, for the employers in the group, if they're considering that the resources are available to them as well. Okay. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm on a board for Wellia here in town, for Wellia Health. It's a little bit larger of an employer. So our discussion as a board level has been, when childcare within Wellia has been brought up, is we provide it and then we don't, it's a time where nobody has kids. So we have this capability and then we don't have the children to be in the childcare. And then all of a sudden we have an influx and we have too many kids, and how do you cut it off? And then along with that is, Wellia has all shifts, every shift. So how do you work with that situation? So that's where the damned if you do and damned if you don't comes into play from our perspective as a board, because we feel that we can't provide the right childcare within that facility. But it's a necessity because we have the people that work from 2 in the morning till 10 in the morning, and they may be a single mom and they don't have that childcare availability. Or, you know, all of a sudden we have 50 kids, but we only have the capability of serving 20 kids. So what happens to the other 30, and who gets to be part of the childcare and who doesn't get to be part of the childcare? So that's kind of what Doyle was playing off of from my perspective.
Yes, 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 and yes. I mean, that's the dilemma. It's every business has that same thought. Every provider has that thought. I don't have enough space. I have too many kids. I have too much. I mean, that is it. I mean, it's many tentacles. There's no easy fix, but more supply, more, better directors, etc. And then also, yes, we're going to need some businesses to help. So yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, I'll call for questions again. Oh.
I apologize. I don't know, maybe you already answered this and I just didn't hear. Okay, so like with this pod thing, if you were to combine a couple different single-family providers, for instance, they're all licensed for what they're allowed. Now, does that allow for them to change, like, let's say, for instance, you got these 3 ladies that were to go together. Does that allow for them to then change the amount of, like, what they're allowing?
No. No, you're not together. Just know you're not together. You just happen to be in the same facility. You're still your own independent family child care business.
So what is the benefit outside of?
Lower space costs. Lower overhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The part that kind of bothered me about that is when you said you can't cover, the staff on one can't be the staff on the other. Can the pods employ the same backups?
Not at the same time. They have to be the one pod. Right. One staff person can't cover more than one space.
But you've talked about having a backup, right? That there's a helper, there's a backup. Can't the people in that employ the same person?
Yes, they're not at the same time.
Well, not at the same time. But what I'm saying is, if 3 of you, she should work for her today. That's where I was trying to say one of the other advantages could be your backup system.
However, then you got to get into paying all the Social Security and the workers' comp and everything, which I do for my employees that I have. But now if I were to sub that out to everybody else, I can't just do that for, say, $10 an hour. I'm going to have to ask Barb to pay maybe $15 an hour to use my sub to help cover offset the cost of workers' comp and Social Security and all those other factors that I'm paying on the other side. Does that make sense?
Yep, those details are there for sure. And what I would say is there is pros and cons. And the people that are in, there is. I will. That's correct. But I say the pros and cons is the women that are in the pods in Detroit Lakes will not leave. They love it. But they're the 4 right people for that situation. It's not the right situation for everybody. The big benefits they have is they get to go to a job and go home. That is their biggest benefit. They'd say that they're not in their home all day. So that's the biggest benefit that they find for themselves, those 4.
Okay. We